There we go. Good lord. Okay, so that entire time my microphone was off. Let's go through the spiel again. Welcome, everybody. My name is Chris. This is Wizard Way. So sorry about the microphone issue, but we are here today to discuss Tolkien copyright. This is because the Tolkien estate has recently updated their website. Yeah, sorry, Janet. Tolkien Estate has recently updated their website, and they have expanded upon what they believe is a violation of copyright when it comes to Tolkien, his name, his works, Middle-earth, all of it. So we are going to be going through the Tolkien Estate website, taking a look at the FAQ, where they spell all of this out, and talk about what sort of ramifications this is going to cause in the fandom, because ultimately we're looking at not just fan fiction, but audio, audiovisual, content creation, all that jazz. And all that jazz. It's a strange time to be a Tolkien fan. I'm doing well, Gwen, thank you. I'm in that strange state of shock where I'm just not sure how I feel about this yet. Like, I always understand an artist cracking down on copyright. It is their right to do this. But when it comes to a fandom as large as the Tolkien fandom, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, all of us fans who really, really love this stuff, when it comes to the fandom, this is one clear case where fandom is what has kept Tolkien relevant. Because Tolkien is a very specific niche of fantasy. Not just because it's high fantasy, but I'm talking Tolkien itself. Tolkien's works are not formulated for a modern audience. They aren't. Like, it truly is that simple. Tolkien's writing style is not geared toward a modern audience. As such, what has kept Tolkien relevant has been adaptations, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which really revitalized the entire fandom. Polarized as well, because we're dealing with that again with the Amazon TV show. Very polarized fandom right now when it comes to what should and should not be. I know, BTS, right? What should and what should not be done with Tolkien's works, interpretations of such. So even though it's polarizing, that invigorates the fandom, right? I think we can all agree on that, right? So, please don't call me that. That's so gender dysphoric for me. Oh man, I mean, if we're close, you can call me Hyungnim, but I think even that, Sunbae, you can call me Sunbae. You can call me Oppa. That level of fandom, I don't think I've reached that point though, so thank you. But oh, that's a good laugh, thank you. Could you avoid stuff if you only use movie stuff? That would be Warner Brother copyright, exactly. So we're gonna discuss sort of what this means. I am, huge disclaimer, I am in no way a lawyer. I have never personally been involved in an intellectual property lawsuit case. I am a former LGBTQ publisher, so I can bring a little bit of that knowledge to the table, but yeah. It's one of those things that it really is the adaptations that have kept the fandom strong. Because we're talking about works that were created from the 1930s to the 1970s. Like, posthumously, the Silmarillion came out in, what was it, 77, 78? I'm blanking on the exact date, but it's mid-70s. And so for them to try to crack down on copyright violation with how active the fandom has been since the 70s is, quite frankly, laughable. Because if you were going to take an Anne Rice approach, which, for anyone who's not familiar, author Anne Rice, rest in peace, she, from the get-go, really, when it comes to the Vampire Chronicles, aka Interview with the Vampire Lestat, and all of the books that followed in that long series. With the Vampire Chronicles, Anne Rice wanted zero fanfiction. Zero. And she actively went after fanfic writers. I remember just reading the book, 77, thank you. I remember reading the Vampire Chronicles, and this is like back when chat rooms and forums were still like the majority of the internet. So I went on to some forums and met some people who really enjoyed the Vampire Chronicles, and they got in touch with me, and they were just like, psst, psst, I've got a fanfic. Like, you wanna watch? I got a fanfic. You wanna read it? And it was all very hush-hush, because the whole point was you could not post it on the internet. Because Anne Rice would come for you. Anne Rice took a very hardline stance when it came to violation of copyright. If she herself did not write it, she did not want her characters and her world as she had formed it appearing in other people's works of fiction, even if it was not being done for profit. Even if it was basically just, I did this thing for fun and I put it on the internet to share with my friends. Still technically copyright, therefore she went after them. So Anne Rice was very hardline. And for the Tolkien estate to try and move toward that direction after literally decades of not being that way, it's going to be an uphill battle for them. Because do I think that they're going to go after like the 20,000 plus fanfics that are on AO3? Probably not. Like, the Tolkien estate has a good amount of money, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they have that big of a legal team that they are going to go after all of us individuals that have tried to do fanfiction over the years. Unsanctioned fanfic. Yeah, you can write all you want about it, Lestat. Oh boy. So yeah, we're going to go through their website. We're going to discuss what their the purity is long gone, exactly. Especially when you have so many adaptations. You look at things like even Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. We're talking about still an adaptation. All of us know that is not 100% book accurate, right? But the difference is that was sanctioned. They bought the rights. And so it's sanctioned fan fiction at that point. It's audiovisual sanctioned fan fiction. Same thing with the Hobbit trilogy, which, in my opinion, it's entertaining. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. You are absolutely free to love the Hobbit films, but in my personal opinion, not that great. Not that great. And it deviated so far from the original text and the tone of the original text. We are talking pure, at that point, Peter Jackson fanfic of The Hobbit. You added characters, you added drama that wasn't there. There's a published TTRPG on the market. How could you restrict fanfic? Right. So, but that's the problem. That's the problem. There certain rules of this and certain exceptions to the rules contradict each other based on what has already been allowed. So we're gonna go through this. I've wondered what they're going to do about people who use Tolkien language in tattoos. So tattoo is considered personal use. And though I know they would absolutely prefer people ask permission before getting tattoos, especially with the Tolkien name symbol. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The name symbol, the JRRT symbol, this one. It's emblazoned on practically everything. That name symbol in particular, they are like really trying to not let people use, period. But are they going to come after you and demand that you get your tattoo removed? No, they're not. Because that's considered personal use. And I don't think they're going to go hardcore after personal use. But it's when things become public, and especially when they become, I am making profit, that the waters get muddier. Yes, and the lawyers with cheese graters. I know, like, I wasn't gonna say that, but you're right. Right, like, you have that on a license plate on your car. Like, what? Are they gonna hunt you down? Especially over the pond. Like, especially across the pond. We're over here in the US, like, make me. But no, like, that's sort of that's the rub, right? It's all technically a copyright violation. This is why when I started writing fanfic back in the day, and I say that because y'all don't even know how old I am. Ha ha! Guess my age! But when I started writing fanfic back in the day and reading fanfic back in the day, I had that sort of moral dilemma because I knew already that technically fanfiction is a copyright violation. Like, everyone made that sort of clear, and we just sort of put the little disclaimer at the end of every piece, in the opening bit of every piece where you give, title, fanfic author name, pairings, any potential trigger warnings, basic plot, or what we call a blurb, basic blurb for what people can expect the plot to be like, and then, like, disclaimer. Intended in fair use, no copyright violation intended, right? Doesn't make it less of a copyright violation to say that, but that's what people tend to put on their fanfics. Like, it's meant in fair use. I'm not trying to pass this off as something it's not. We're not trying to say, well, this is my world. I created this. I made this. We've never been like that. We've never been trying to pass off our fan fiction as if it is original fiction. But technically it is still a copyright violation. It's just that most authors don't care. And Tolkien has made a couple statements, and I know you can find counter arguments to this within his own letters, so But he intended his world to be a sandbox that other artists could play in. Now, I know that Tolkien probably restricted that to wanting specific kinds of products to be made within his world, right? And not necessarily fan fiction. I don't think any author really anticipates the force of fan fiction behind a fandom. Do I think it has anything to do with Priscilla's passing? I don't pretend to know. I don't pretend to know that. I would have no way of knowing. I don't think so. Honestly, I think the state of alive or unaliveness of the various people within Tolkien's family, I don't think that impacts so much their stance on copyright. I think this has been building for a while, and while it's not a change I was anticipating, it's a change that makes logical sense in the digital age. Priscilla is Tolkien's youngest daughter. It's his only daughter, but his youngest kid. Yeah. And she passed recently, like, was it maybe a week ago now? Yeah, I'm not gonna stop writing my fan fiction or art that you've done for yourself and gifts and stuff. Yeah. Again, personal use. But for people like, I have a couple favorite artists, right? I'll show off one of their pieces. I am doing an entire art wall in my new place. That's nothing but watercolor art by Jenny Dolphin, who's amazing. So I still have a couple pieces I need to purchase to fill in frames that I've gotten the frames, but I don't have the artwork yet for them. But once I do, I will have 16 different pieces just by Jenny Dolphin. And I've started getting stuff by Anna Kulitsu. Anna Kulitsu is amazing. Let me show off one of her pieces. Okay. It's a big one. It's a big one, okay? So this is a painting of Taniquetil. So this is the mountain on which Varda and Manwë live. So you have Manwë and Varda up here. I only recently discovered she had done this piece, and it matches my entire color scheme in my bedroom. It matches literally my entire color scheme. And I was like, I need it, I want it, I must have it. So I haven't hung it up yet, but this is part of my themed room, since this is the Varda Manwë room in my place, in my Valinor house. So yeah, amazing artist. Please find Anna on Etsy. Amazing artwork. Okay. So just as an example, but that's technically copyright. If you're using any place or names specifically, like, you could make the art, like, that art is abstract enough that as long as you didn't name it Taniquetil and you didn't mention Manwë or Varda, you could pass that off as just fantasy art. And then it wouldn't be in violation of copyright. But the moment you put Tolkien's name on it, that's a copyright violation. So what do we do about fan art? What do we do about fan art that is obviously Tolkien? If it's not sanctioned, it's a copyright violation. Because these are artists that are selling their work, right? Do I think it'll affect TikTok? It's not personal, but you're not making money. I'm making passive income. You know, I'm not at the same level that Don Marshall is. And I would love to hear Don's thoughts on this, because Don has a lot more connections now because of his numbers on TikTok. He's working with Sean Astin on a freaking book club. How cool is that? But the book club is sanctioned by the Tolkien estate, or else it wouldn't be happening. Certainly not with one of the actors who was part of the trilogy. Yeah, his Patreon's great. Yeah, shout out to Don Marshall 72. Please search for Don Marshall over on Patreon and support him. I'm probably going to be a part of a lot of his bonus content over on his Patreon. We got to do some Tipsy Tolkien. That'd be really fun. Yeah. The thing is fair use. Yeah. And what does fair use cover or not cover? Not particularly worried. Yeah, the opinion of the estate has never changed. This is not news, really, but they've never stated it so expansively in their FAQ. Yeah, obligatory note, not a lawyer. Yeah, same. Same, though. Should you be mass saving your favorite Silmarillion fics? It wouldn't hurt. If you have access to them and the ability to download, I would do it just in case. It never hurts. It never hurts to have an archive of your favorite stuff. Having a backup is always good. I say this because sometimes artists, even just fanfiction writers will sometimes pull their work. If they had a concept in a fanfic that they have transitioned into an original idea, they will pull it so that it's no longer on the internet. I've done that, even. Yeah, I honestly think that AO3 is safe. I don't think the Tolkien estate is going to go after individual fanfic authors and try and take their works down. I think that is such a gargantuan task that they're just not going to bother. They could if they wanted to, but I don't think they will. And the thing is that none of the fanfiction writers are trying to pass it off as Tolkien actually wrote this. Like, none of us are pretending it's something it's not. Yeah, AO3 has a really buffed legal team. I would absolutely assume as much. They've been around for a while. I remember when AO3 was, like, brand new. Yeah. The Tolkien estate would be absolutely bonkers if they thought that they could take on AO3 and take down every single fanfic that has the Tolkien tag on it. That would be pretty extreme. I don't think that's going to happen. And ultimately, my thought is, if they did do that, if they really tried to go after it, all they would be doing is hurting their own fandom. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot. The fandom is the only reason Tolkien is still relevant. Truly. And that is my honest to whatever's opinion. It's my honest opinion that fandom is the only reason that Tolkien is still relevant. Adaptations and fandom is the only thing keeping this whole thing alive, because we have other things that are more engaging for a modern audience, like Critical Role, which I personally have never watched, but I understand the impact that RP has now. And, you know, D&D in general. And I mean, heck, D&D lifted so many things directly from Tolkien that they were in a very long lawsuit with the Tolkien estate over that, where they had to change names because they were, you know, they had Balrogs even, which is totally specifically a Tolkien thing. So all direct references of Tolkien had to be taken out of D&D manuals. And there are certain things that they deemed vague enough to be okay to use, and then other things that were too specific and had to be pulled or change the names, what have you. So yeah, hobbits to halflings, exactly. That's perfect example. So yeah, and everyone's like, I always play halflings. But that sort of thing is what got changed. They had Balrogs at one time too, and I don't know what they were changed to because I don't play D&D, but this is what happened. Right. You know, I'm not in the D&D community at all, but, you know, I'm working on a song with Cammy Cat. So it's like, I see how large this is. And we wouldn't have that stuff without Tolkien having, you know, trailblazed the way that he did. You know, unintentionally, really. But Tolkien has inspired a lot in the high fantasy genre as a whole. But Tolkien's work itself, while we do have us, you know, super fans, we've been, you know, dissecting little tiny bits of his notes for years now. If Tolkien's works were never adapted to film, how many of us would still be part of the fandom? I wouldn't be here. I'll be honest. I saw the movie first. I saw The Fellowship of the Ring. Had never even heard of Tolkien. Not once. I didn't read The Hobbit when I was a kid. I had no idea. Zero clue about high fantasy as a genre and Tolkien specifically until I was in high school. And my family dragged me to the movie theater. I wasn't even looking forward to it. I was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, an angsty teen. Did not want to be there. Instantly fell in love with the world, with, you know, Tolkien's world, with Middle Earth, with the elves. I was like, ooh, pretty. Gender identity awakening. Yeah, me being non-binary. Instantaneous. But seeing the androgyny of the elves and that stuff, you know, that's what got me into it. It was the adaptation that got me into Tolkien, not the other way around. And I know that's not true for everyone. But without those adaptations, though, if it was just a book and a book alone, how many people would not even be in the fandom or have even heard of it? Other than knowing that spawned things like D&D, right? I have seen the old animated movies, but it's been so long since I've watched them that I honestly don't remember them. Only bits and pieces. The visual style is completely different. But anyway, we're here. I said we were going to go through the website, so let's switch things up and actually go to the website, shall we? Shall we? All right, here we go. Or not. Do the thing. It's like, no! Okay, here we go. Alright, so if you are on my YouTube channel, I now have the website displayed, and we'll go through some things. Thank you so much, Battle Girl. Thank you. We're talking about the Tolkien Estate having updated their website and their FAQ and expanded upon the idea of copyright. They expanded upon what they had to say about copyright. The view has not changed. It's always been very, this is Tolkien, this is violation of copyright. They've been very clear on it. Thanks for the pride flag. But this is the first time that I've seen it so explicitly stated. And it makes creators like myself second guess what we're doing, how we're doing it. For the most part, we're just trying to geek out. Like, we're making quasi-educational content, trying to just have a fun time in the fandom. We're never trying to pass things off as ours that aren't ours. But are we getting paid because of Tolkien? Some more than others. I make pennies on TikTok, so that's not really an issue. And I'm not currently, I don't have AdSense on YouTube yet. I used to, but I dropped off the face of the planet for a good year and a half, and therefore I lost my AdSense because of inactivity on the platform. So we're working on that. But I get paid to do Tolkien translations. Like, basically, the way I like to term it is people donate and I give them translations in return for donation. I'm supposed to say it that way rather than saying I take commissions. Because that's me profiting off a language that is not mine. A fictional language that Tolkien created is not mine. I have this hair in the back of my head. What are you doing? What? What are you doing? I need a sassy gay friend. It's hopeless. Whatever. You're just gonna notice it up here. Hey, thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks for coming over to YouTube. Yeah, this is where I need the watch minutes, so thank you for being here. But let's take a look at the website. I know I'm looking this way. Sorry. Orientation of camera. But this is the Tolkien Estate website, like tolkienestate.com, I believe. Yeah, tolkienestate.com. So if we scroll all the way down, they did actually release some new stuff too, so if you're curious about seeing some of Tolkien's drawings and stuff like that, they did recently do an update with some new stuff, which is kind of fun. But down at the bottom we have the FAQ. So here we go. So this is where people ask their frequently asked questions, FAQ, and links and such. So this is, can I get permission to do X, Y, and Z? Which are very common questions for the Tolkien Estate. So how can I get access to the archives? You don't really have to worry about that. That's not what we're doing. Artworks and images. Can I get permission to reproduce Tolkien images in a book I'm writing? And it's like bona fide image reproduction requests can be directed here. And so they give you a link. Can I make copies of Tolkien's artworks for other purposes? And here's what the website says, quote, Tolkien's original drawings, paintings, maps, designs, scripts, and other graphic works are protected by copyright and may not be copied. The Tolkien Estate takes action against parties who try to commercialize Tolkien's works, including maps of Middle-earth, the One Ring inscription, and other images. Hey, thank you for subscribing. Thank you, Marina. Shout out. Shrubbery. but no, and you know, we know this, like, you're not supposed to put this is the, other than, you know, officially sanctioned licensed stuff, you're not supposed to be able to buy a replica of the One Ring, right? You're not supposed to be able to get like a cheapo One Ring. You're not supposed to use Tengwar script on anything, because technically the Tengwar script is a graphic work created by Tolkien, protected by copyright. So, you know, merch that I've done with Dawn, even though the translation itself has been my work, and Neosindren is a really gray area. It's a gray area because it's originally based on Tolkien, but it has morphed with suppositions and what's the word I'm looking for? We've tried to standardize something that was never meant to be standardized. And in doing so, it has skewed off into not technically being Tolkien's anymore. It's a gray area. It's a gray area. When a conlang has evolved past where the author had originally done it, who then owns the copyright? It's a strange gray area. So especially for my translation work, what am I gonna do? I don't know. That's my livelihood right now. That's literally all I'm able to do for cash. So what do we do? I don't know. And then, can I use a Tolkien image in marketing or promoting my goods or services for an event I'm holding? Tolkien Estate does not give permission for use of its copyright works in these situations. This policy extends not only to commercial activities, but also those which are charitable or not for profit. AKA, don't use it. Don't use the Tolkien name symbol, don't use the Tolkien name at all. don't, we can't have Bilbo's birthday party like we used to, okay? Like, there was a Bilbo's birthday party, little tiny mini festival in my hometown when the movies were still big and there was an active fandom in my hometown. We put on Bilbo Baggins' birthday party every year in September. And we put up the party banner, and we had a silent auction, and proceeds from that went to a charity, etc. Anything like that would be technically violation of copyright. Now, if we said something like halfling birthday party, that would be vague enough that you could get away with it, because it's not technically attached to the Tolkien name, and we weren't using any, artwork of his to try and advertise the event. It irks me because none of the people deciding this created any of it. Is fanfic in danger? I don't think fanfic is in danger, because if they were going to crack down on fanfiction, they should have done so decades ago, before it got as big as it currently is. I don't think that they would be successful in taking down all Tolkien fanfic. And fanfiction is so integral to the fandom. It's so integral to the fandom at this point that just, I feel that doing so, even if they chose to, which they are within their legal right to do, if they went that far, I feel like it would do irreparable harm to the fandom. And in turn, do harm to the Tolkien estate. You're not going to get money in your coffers by pissing off the fandom. Ultimately. Honestly, I think, in this personal opinion, I think that if they went after fanfic, that would be worse than the backlash that is happening over the new adaptation from Amazon. They're going to miss out on money more by killing the grassroots fandom than they would over an adaptation that may or may not be good. It is yet to be seen. Yeah, BB birthday, right. It would be against their own best interest to go after fanfic. I truly believe that. So I don't think that they would go that far. Picnic instead of Bilbo's birthday. Well, you couldn't use the name Bilbo, because Bilbo is an iconic name that's obviously from Tolkien. You would have to change the name. But you can't use the word hobbit either, so it would have to be something like halfling picnic. It's vague enough that it's technically not a copyright violation. Yeah, if people go after AO3, like, you're gonna cause a riot in the fandom. You really are. I agree. Alright, let's move on to the next, because we got a lot to cover. Alright, we got clubs and societies. Tolkien clubs and societies require a license to use the Tolkien name, which is a registered trademark. That's a thing that you'll see frequently mentioned, is that Tolkien's name itself is a registered trademark. You can't use the name Tolkien on anything. Like my old podcast, Crystal Clear Tolkien, violation of copyright, because it's a registered trademark. I would not be able to do that. Talkin' Tolkien, that's what I'm talking about. These are various podcasts, to my knowledge, that use Tolkien's name. You would not be able to do that. You shouldn't be able to do that. It is a registered trademark. So if they really wanted to go after people, they could do that. They could go after podcast names and make people rebrand. But I don't think that they would go after the podcast itself and be like, you can't have discussions about the work, because the educational portion they are usually in favor of. The only reason I say that is I'm in contact with Fiona Jallings, who literally wrote the book on Neo Sindarin, A Fan's Guide to Neo Sindarin, 2017, by Fiona Jallings. This is how I'm learning the more updated version of Tolkien's Elvish, to the best of our fanish knowledge, right? Based on his notes. But there are certain things we've done to standardize the language that it's just a best guess. By an actual linguist, because Fiona is a linguist. I am not. Yeah, can you imagine if your name was actually Tolkien? That wouldn't be great. I think they'd make an exception. If your parents had named you after that, like, I don't think they'd come after you and be like, you have to legally change your name. But that's a far extreme. But yeah, you're not supposed to be able to use the Tolkien name unless you've been officially licensed. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. That's why the keyboard that I got, the keyboard that has the Elvish keycaps on it, that's licensed. They got permission from the Tolkien estate to do that. But that leads into another bit that we will cover, which is if you don't want people using the Tengwar font, like the Tengwar text, if you don't want people to be writing and sharing anything in Tolkien's written language, in the alphabet of the Tengwar, if you don't want people doing that, why did you license people to make keycaps that not only have it on there, but are in line with the keyboard mapping used for every Elvish font? Why are there Elvish fonts at all? If you don't want people doing graphic art using the Tengwar, one easy way to make that a lot more difficult would be take down the fonts. But if you were planning on taking down the fonts and making that, you know, an illegal use of copyright, why did you sanction a keyboard be made to match them? There's a certain contradiction there. Like, what is okay and what isn't okay? You're not making any sense. You're not being consistent in that case. Yeah, going super, super strict would kill the fandom in a couple years. I honestly think it would. Because if they made it that difficult to... If you make it difficult for fans to enjoy being part of fandom, they're going to leave the fandom. The more difficult you make it, the more people are going to be like, it's not worth the effort. I can find another really welcoming community. Tolkien is not the only fantasy writer anymore. There are some amazing fandoms. And if we put half of the passion that we have for Tolkien into a different fandom, those fandoms would flourish. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do. We'll see how strict they end up taking it, like where they actually put the effort in legally. IP laws are whack. IP laws are there for a reason. They're there for a reason. And in a lot of cases, they need to be actionable. But it's within reason. And where is that line in the sand? That's where things get mucky. Mucky/murky. I don't know what word I was going for there. So clubs and societies and podcasts and stuff like that, you should not be able to do that without being officially licensed to use the Tolkien name. Yeah, legally they don't want you doing it, but they're actually okay with casual use for personal use. Yeah. They just need to lock it down so they have the option to copyright strike. And that is legit. And that's why I have mixed feelings on this, because having been a publisher and an author myself, if someone was trying to pass off their stuff as mine, I'd be kind of angry about that. And I would want to take action if I had the financial means to do so, which they do. But it's where's the line? Where's the line? Ooh, steampunk writer. Sure. I don't do nearly enough reading. I will be absolutely honest about that. I've never been a big reader. It's incredible that I even made it through Tolkien's books. That's through sheer willpower. Through sheer willpower and obsession. Because I really don't read a lot. I really don't. Who are we talking about? Gail? Gail Carriger? Bonjour. Bienvenue. Comment allez-vous? Her next books are going to be sci-fi and the tagline is, "The aliens are coming and they want our K-pop." Sign me up. Shut up and take my money. Don't actually speak French. I don't either. It sounded good though, didn't it? I try. Okay, moving on. Let's hit more. There's a contact, there's documentaries if you want to make a documentary about J.R.R. Tolkien or his works. There's a bona fide request may be done here link. Events and festivals. Can I organize a Tolkien event or festival? While the Tolkien estate encourages interest in J.R.R. Tolkien's works, the name Tolkien is a registered trademark and may not be used for the promotion of an event or festival without permission. AKA, contact us first. Ask for permission instead of asking for forgiveness. But here's the kicker. Fanfiction. It has its own little section now. Can I publish fan fiction or other books or material based on Tolkien's works? Keyword here, publish. Can I publish? The Tolkien estate has a duty to protect the integrity of Tolkien's original writings and artworks and takes copyright very seriously. This means that you cannot copy any part of Tolkien's writings or images, nor can you create materials which refer to the characters, stories, places, events, or other elements contained in any of Tolkien's works. That's the kicker. What is considered publishing? Because technically, putting stuff online, if you have written a fanfic, say, even if it is made up of primarily original characters, just, say, like the Amazon TV show, if you have a bunch of original characters and it's not actual stuff that Tolkien wrote. If you use a line that Tolkien wrote, like if you have Gandalf pop in and say an iconic line from one of the books and then pop back out again, and then everything else is original, that's still a violation of copyright because that's something that Tolkien wrote specifically. You can't use the One Ring speech. You can't use a bit of a poem that was included in the books. You can't do any of that. That is technically copyright violation. Characters, stories, places, events, or other elements contained in Tolkien's works. That's a lot. That is a lot. You think it's best for everyone if you don't release your fanfic? I feel that way sometimes too. Like, y'all know I'm kink positive, and y'all know that I'm LGBTQ, but like you don't know until you've read my fiction. You don't know. Is Tolkien Gateway safe? I would have no idea. No idea. The thing is, Tolkien has given permission to a lot of things that are there for the reason of education. But things are making money off of it, right? Like, ad revenue is a thing. Tolkien Gateway does that. Tolkien Gateway has ads, therefore they are getting paid. To my knowledge, the OneRing.net does too. And these are people who get exclusive content from people who have licensed or bought the rights to certain things. This is why they get exclusives with the Amazon TV show and stuff like that. They've been given the exclusive from the people who are currently holding the copyright for that particular piece of media. Hope that makes sense. But it brings a lot of traffic, and traffic, when you have ad revenue, is always a good thing. You're going to get paid. So people are making money off of this. But yeah, that covers an awful lot. You cannot copy any part of Tolkien's writings or images. Characters, stories, places, events, or other elements contained in any of Tolkien's works. So that fic you were gonna write about Melkor and Myron, technically you shouldn't do it. Technically. Are they actually gonna go after you? Probably not. Probably not. But could they? Yes, they could. And do you have the money to fight them? It's a fear tactic, ultimately. We're trying to scare you from doing anything so that we don't have to take the effort. Fanzines. Can I publish a Tolkien fanzine? The name Tolkien is a registered trademark, can't be used without permission. Unfortunately, permission cannot be given for publications which use the name Tolkien or the Tolkien estate's copyright materials, aka, no, you can't have a fanzine. Remember when fanzines were super common? Films. Where can I inquire about the films? Will there be a film of the Silmarillion? Which is always a question that I get. I get that question a lot. While understanding the wish of many fans to see a film of the Silmarillion, the Tolkien estate has no current plans for any such motion picture. They're holding tight to the Silmarillion rights, and I don't know that they're ever going to allow an adaptation of the film. I'd love to see it. I'm curious. I'm curious what they would do with it, what any filmmaker or, television production crew would do with it. Zines are lawless anyway, so they can't really be killed. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Fanzines were always just it's a grassroots fandom thing. Are they sanctioned? Are they official? No, we know they're not. Nobody who picks up a fanzine thinks it's actually licensed from the Tolkien estate. Does it stop people? No. Will this give some people pause before they create one? Perhaps. And that's what they're hoping for, which is fair, which is totally fair. If The Rings of Power does well, Amazon maybe could do a First Age television show, perhaps. Perhaps. It would have to be really successful, though. And honestly, it would have to be successful in a way that it was true to canon, and we already know that's not going to happen. So I don't think that the setup for the Amazon show as we currently know it to be set up, as for what we've seen from the trailer and what they've said in interviews about it, the creators, we know it's not going to be true to canon. Not in that way. Not so true to canon that it would give people hope that the film could be adapted. I don't think it's going to go that far. I'm still cautiously optimistic when it comes to the TV show. I like to hope, but I also have dismally low expectations. I just sort of assume it's going to crash and burn, and then if it does moderately well, I'll be satisfied. Having low expectations is the trick to my happiness. I have a lot of hopes for things, I hope for representation when it comes to, I love seeing people with different skin tones cast. That's great. I love that. Not everybody does, but I do. I would love to see queer representation, and people will like to, joke about that as if being gay is the brunt of the joke, which is dumb. But, they're like, oh, so we're just gonna have all of the androgynous elves wearing pink crop tops? A video on YouTube did actually say that, and that's why in my y'all are assholes video that I made on TikTok, I made the point of saying I'm a wear a wig and a pink crop top and call myself an elf just to piss you off. Because I would. But despite people being, we're gonna do that, I'm like, it's not like that. The representation we're looking for is not that. The representation we're looking for is giving depth to the motivations of the characters and making some of those motivations queer. That is literally it. We're not demanding that things get shown as being sexual on screen. We know this TV show is not going to be Game of Thrones, which, by the way, I had never seen until recently. Literally, 3 or 4 days ago, I started watching Game of Thrones. Out of sheer curiosity. I have no actual love of it. And I'm frankly not that impressed. I'm impressed I'm impressed with what they've done visually and with practical effects. I'm impressed by that. From a filmmaking standpoint, knowing that this was done several years ago. But I'm not impressed with the story at all. Not yet. You're gonna have to try harder. But I'm only a couple episodes into season 2. So we'll see. We'll see if my thoughts evolve on that front. But anyway, I'm like, what was I saying? I want there, because we know that this new TV show from Amazon Prime is not going to be a Game of Thrones show. We know that. There might be sensual elements, but they're not going to go hardcore sexual. Which I think is a good thing, because Tolkien's work is not overly sexualized. And I'm fine with it not being sexualized. Just because fan fiction sexualizes it doesn't mean that I think an official adaptation needs to hold that space. But it would be great to see representation. It's the small things. It's Ian McKellen making sure that Sean Astin took Elijah Wood's hand when he's in, the last homely house in Rivendell, and Frodo wakes up, right? That's a queer moment, because for people who are queer, reading that moment in the book where he took his hand and Mr. Frodo, like, I'm so happy you're okay. That read as being a very tender, important moment to the queer community. Regardless of original intention. Intention versus impact. Very different. Very different. Intention was totally not queer there. At least we think. To our knowledge. But the impact that it has on queer readers is legit. And so having that impact recognized in a new adaptation would be lovely. So having Anatar and Celebrimbor have a relationship, even if it's not explicitly shown in a physical sense. Having the seduction of Celebrimbor be a thing, it would be an important representation for the queer community. As problematic as it is, because it would be problematic, because it plays into several harmful tropes, but it would still be representation. And the more we do that, the more we normalize that representation, the less it has to be a big deal in the future. The more we do it, the less of a big deal it is. Anyway. Representation would be nice. Moving on. So that's stuff about the films. Film rights, blah, blah, blah. Infringement. Can I report an infringement of copyright in Tolkien's works or the Tolkien trademarks? Absolutely. They want you to do that. And there's an email address that you can use if you really want to. And when you see something that is a clear freaking violation, like you see someone who took the entirety of the film, put a different cover on it, and they're selling it on Amazon. Author, not Tolkien. And it's just, it's a recovered book that they didn't write, as nothing added to it. That is a clear violation of copyright, and I would want you to report that. There are instances where it's very, very clear, and you should absolutely report that stuff. Go for it. But me having a PDF that teaches people how to read and write Tengwar, you could report that, but why? They probably would not come after me for that, because it's educational. But the t-shirts that have Tengwar on them, could you report that? Yeah. Why would you want to? But you could. It's how high level of anxiety do you want to give the creators that you enjoy? Ultimately, that's what we're talking about. How much stress do you want to cause me, Dawn, Nubeta, cosplayers? How much stress do you want to give us? That's the question. Because you can make our lives really stressful if you wanna. Yeah, Tolkien hated the thought of his work being interpreted as allegorical, but here we are. Don't give the trolls ideas. I know. I'm making it too easy. Thing is, if trolls want to make my life hell, they're gonna make my life hell. Regardless. I'm hoping they don't. I'm not to a point of fame yet. I don't have that level of following where I will trigger the wrong side of a community and be mutilated. Interviews. Can I interview a member of the Tolkien family? We don't care about that. Answer, no. Probably not. Invented languages. This is an important one. Can I write in Tolkien's invented languages or use Tolkien's invented scripts, aka the Tengwar or the Cirth, right? Here's what the website says. Tolkien's invented languages and scripts are protected by copyright. You may use them for your own private interest and amusement, but you may not reproduce them in any form of publication or in connection with any group activity, commercial or otherwise. AKA the bridal party that I am working on. I should not put anything in Tengwar on the t-shirt designs that I am making for this bridal party. Could I easily avoid that? Yeah, I could. Am I going to? No. Could I get in trouble for that? Yeah. Because it's no longer a private thing. It's a group activity. It's a public wedding. Now, am I trying to publish it? No. But it's also, for me, it's still a commercial activity because they are buying shirts from me. So this is where, you know, people like me would get in a lot of trouble. We'd get in a lot of trouble. So our t-shirts are now illegal? They always were. They always were. Okay? I want to make that clear. They always were. I knew before I started making merch at all that technically using the Tengwar at all is copyright infringement. It's the weighing of, do I think it's all in good fun? And do I think I'm really doing harm to the Tolkien estate? I don't think I am. But am I willfully violating copyright there? Yes. That's good. I'm going to buy more. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. But no, like, it's I hate using this term because it sounds too self-grandizing, if that makes sense. But it's for the good of the fandom. That's what I weigh in my mind. Is this going to invigorate the fandom? Are people going to have fun? And are they going to wear this and start conversations about Tolkien? Which uplifts the fandom. Am I engaging the fandom in a way that is healthy? These are the questions that I ask myself before I do a merch design. Am I trying to prove a point with something and get the fandom behind it? Sometimes yes. Like, get vaccinated. Get the healing poke in Elvish on a shirt. It started conversations, didn't it? And it gives the fandom something fun to do. We're keeping it alive, okay? That's really all that Dawn and I want to do. Is keep the fandom engaged, share our passion with people, and to us, that motivation is pure enough to in our heads justify. But justification does not, clear us from legal ramification. And we know that. Anybody who makes Tolkien merch knows that. We're not stupid. Right. We try and keep the fandom interesting and appealing to new people. That is literally it. That is the goal. That is totally the goal. I want this fandom to thrive. It's meant a lot to me over the years. I want it to thrive. Can I do that without violating copyright? Probably not. Probably not. Let's be real. So invented languages are technically off the table. They shouldn't be used. And unless officially licensed, unless explicit permission from the Tolkien estate. And that's, again, where we run into a murky area, because Fiona Jallings got permission. Fiona Jallings got permission from the Tolkien. It is sanctioned by the Tolkien estate that she put out a book called Fan's Guide to Neo Sindarin. She's putting out a second edition. She still has their permission. That said, the merch that she tried to sell on her website, they took her to court over. So the educational stuff is okay. But not merch. It seems a strange place to draw the line, to me, personally. But it's like we don't want people using the languages, and we don't want them using stuff that's specifically from the books, right? So we don't want the Elbereth Gilthoniel chant. We don't want that poem, which was written by Tolkien, to be used elsewhere. And this will segue into another section that we're going to be getting to soon. It's like, we don't want any of that happening, and yet, people learning the language and you know, using it for personal pleasure is okay. It's the please learn the language, and please have fun with the language, but not fun that involves other people. Just solo fun. Which is sounding oddly erotic now. Ignore me. Solo fun only. Masturba Tolkien. I'm like, good idea, Masturba Tolkien. If I really want to piss off the Tolkien estate, I'll make merch of that. Masturba Tolkien. It's okay as long as it's solo. It's okay as long as it's just you and nobody else. How the good Lord intended. If you joined on TikTok or my YouTube just now, I'm so sorry. It's an odd place to come into a live stream. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The entire point of learning a language is communication, which insinuates that it's non-solo fun. Exactly. Exactly. If it was only okay for you to do the research and learn it yourself, they wouldn't have sanctioned a book that teaches you how. Right? Question mark? I have questions, is ultimately the vibe that I get. I have more this leaves me with a lot of questions. Anyway, invented languages and scripts are technically not allowed. Why are there still fonts out there? Why do we have fonts? Because they think we're only going to use it for personal stuff? Like, we can get a tattoo, but we can't write out what we put on our tattoo and put it up online because that's public rather than private. Mm-hmm. And you wear your tattoo in public. What then? Starts conversations. Apparently that's okay. I don't know. It's a difficult line to walk. Merchandise. Where can I get official Tolkien merchandise? Well, obviously the Tolkien Estate store. They have another store collection that's there. Tolkien Estate is not directly involved with merchandise relating to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, aka the movie trilogies. And relevant inquiries about that should be sent to that email address. Can I sell Tolkien-related merchandise? You may not manufacture or sell any items that include the text of Tolkien's works or his artwork. Nor may you use the names Tolkien or J.R.R. Tolkien or the J.R.R.T. monogram signature. That is this. That's a no-go. Okay? And there's an actual Tolkien signature, J.R.R. Tolkien signature that they're talking about. Can't use those. all of which are registered trademarks. The Tolkien estate takes action against individuals who sell infringing merchandise on eBay, Etsy, Redbubble, and similar websites. And because they are saying that the invented languages are covered in copyright violation, they're saying don't sell stuff with them on it either. So they wouldn't come after the people who got the tattoo, they would go after the tattoo artists. I guess. Question mark. And then, can I import infringing merchandise? So this is... Example. And I won't bring it up because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But on Etsy, you can get welcome mats that have the illustration of the doors of Durin. And say, speak friend and enter. That is all sorts of copyright violation. Because it uses a visual artwork thing from the books, number one, uses a quote from the books, number two, and if it's in Elvish, it also uses the invented language. So that's 3. 3 strikes, you're out. Should that stuff be illegal? They're saying they want it to be. And that's within their right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I love my merch, though. I love buying stuff by other people. But you would not be able to have the kitschy sort of homeware stuff like that at all, because all of that would be a violation. All of it. Every map reproduction, other prints, and art that you want to sell is a no-no. Correct. So if you do diamond painting, just as a random example, if you do diamond painting and you have a diamond painting design, you know what I mean, that is a map of Middle-earth. Maybe they did some cool color effects on it so it's not just all two-tone, right? You have a diamond painting design, you want to do a craft thing, right? The company that made that diamond painting design and put it on the thing so that you could do the thing, they should get in trouble, is what that's saying. I think all fandoms that become as large as Tolkien's that require an estate to manage eventually run into the same issues. I think you're right. I think that's absolutely fair. It's not a problem when you don't have a huge fandom. Because at that point, the merch is so obscure that usually it's coming from the official source rather than from the fandom itself. This is one of those things where the fandom then says, well, if you put out more stuff that we could actually buy officially, we would, and then you wouldn't have so many bootlegs. But that's also a very privileged thing to say, is just make merch and I will buy it. Some people have a lot of money, and other people not so much. I'm spending a lot of money theming my house after Tolkien stuff, okay? But I'm using hashtag Valinor House. I shouldn't be able to do that either, because Valinor is a place in Middle-earth, and that is copyrighted. So I shouldn't be able to label my house that. I could say Fantasy House. And anybody who knows would know. But I shouldn't be able to say Valinor House. I shouldn't be saying that it's my Vaire art wall, or that I have a hallway of Mandos. I shouldn't be naming my robot vacuum Namo. These are all copyright violations. If I'm making media about them. If I was just doing that in my home for fun, that's personal use, it's fair use. But if I'm doing it to make content that I am then profiting off of, which technically I am, even if I'm only making, 3 cents a day on TikTok, still technically profiting. At that point, I shouldn't be making it public. But how else are you going to engage the fandom at all? Unless the Tolkien estate decides they want to pay for my house renovation and make it an actual thing. Officially licensed Valinor House. It's never gonna happen. Huin or Juan? I think you mean Juan. Juan. Making that mouth motion of Juan made me want to yawn. Okay, music. And oh man, this is gonna piss so many people off. Music. Can I set Tolkien's works to music? While everyone is free to compose music, the Tolkien estate does not permit the setting of Tolkien's words to music, nor can you use the Tolkien name, book titles, or any of the text of Tolkien's works in connection with any musical composition. AKA, no, you cannot take, again, unless it's officially licensed. You can't do, but the only brew for the brave and true comes from the green dragon. You couldn't do something like that on your own. They could because they had the rights to it. So Clamavi the Profundis is illegal. I'm not familiar with that, but yes? Question mark? Yeah, no problem. No problem, Kristen, I know. Huan is the dog, yeah. Name your dog Huan. No, I'm not a dog person. I might, if I get another cat, I might name the cat Tevildo. Which was going to be Sauron's original name when he was a cat. In early drafts. But this means, oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher his username, but there's a user here on TikTok called Lanceld, I think it is? Lanceld? I duetted one of his pieces at one point. Because he basically has gone through the trouble of setting every poem in The Lord of the Rings to song. And he wants to put out an album, put it out on Spotify. Technically, copyright infringement. Because every single lyric is officially Tolkien's words. And you can't do that. Is it going to stop him? Probably not. He put a lot of time and effort into that. And people love that sort of stuff. And again, it raises awareness, it engages the fandom. But technically, copyright violation. Naming rights. Is it possible to name a building, park, garden, etc. after Tolkien? That's a whole other thing. So registered trademark can't be used without permission. Permission is not given for the naming of buildings, parks, gardens, streets, housing developments, and the like. AKA, don't even contact us asking. Don't even bother asking. Permissions. Can I get permission to quote from Tolkien's works? Bonafide requests can be sent there. AKA, if you wanted a character in your fiction book to quote a line from The Lord of the Rings, technically you're not supposed to do that unless you have permission. And sometimes that also means licensing. Paying a fee in order to get that permission to use it in a book. Hank Green did a thing about that relatively recently. I don't even follow the guy, but he pops up on my FYP. But he talked about how, you know, he wanted to use certain quotes from various songs and stuff like that, and he had to reach out to the people who owned the copyright in order to license that lyric or what have you, so he could put it in his book. You have to license these things. Oh man, he made music for the fight between Felagund and Sauron? Yes. Oh man, that part of the book is so epic. I love that part of the Silmarillion. That's super cool that they made a rap battle for it. I'm all for that. That's pretty awesome. But if it uses the actual words of Tolkien, technically it's a copyright violation, unless they got officially licensed, which I highly doubt. But yeah, can you get permission? You can ask for permission, but you'll probably have to pay a licensing fee. Can I use a Tolkien quotation or Tolkien image in marketing or promotion for my goods or services or for an event I'm holding? Basically, no. Tolkien Estate does not give permission for use of its copyright works in these situations. This policy extends not only to commercial activities, but also those that are charitable and not-for-profit. So, no. No, you can't. Personal messages and communications. Can I get a personal greeting or endorsement from the Tolkien estate or a member of the Tolkien family? No, they don't do that. Can I write a member of the Tolkien family? It's not possible to write directly to the Tolkien family, but you can write the Tolkien estate, if that makes sense. You're not going to actually get a letter to the remaining family members of Tolkien's family, unless you actually personally know them and know their contact information. But us as fans, typically we do not have that information, and they don't want to give it out, and that is perfectly fine. Will the Tolkien estate respond to my questions or opinions about Tolkien's writings? Probably not. While understanding that many fans have passionate views and a great desire for more information about all aspects of Tolkien's works, the Tolkien estate is not able to become involved in any communications of this nature. There are, of course, many public forums where these matters can be discussed. So they're okay with the forums being there, so that they don't have to engage with everybody. Photographs. Can I use a photo or likeness of Tolkien in connection with my work? Typically no, unless you pay a licensing fee. They're protected by copyright. Permission should be sought by the copyright owners. This is it's a recurring theme at this point. Plays and dramatic productions, same story. Can I produce a play or other entertainment based on Tolkien's works? Not without licensing. Are there any play scripts of Tolkien's works available for amateur performance? No. To my knowledge, no. You can produce a play based on the authorized dramatic adaptation of The Hobbit with permission from the Saul Zaentz Company, and they give a contact email. No other authorized play scripts are available, so that is literally the only option. You can do a thing of The Hobbit. That is all. And they don't want you creating one. They don't want you creating an unofficial one. Press and media inquiries. How do we contact them for comment? Blah, blah, blah. Publishing rights. How can I inquire about the publishing rights for Tolkien's work? That would be, something that you as a publisher would want to know, but general fans, not really a question we care about. Questions about Tolkien's work. Will the Tolkien estate respond to my questions or opinions about Tolkien's writing? They already answered that in a different way. No. Quotations. Can I get permission to quote it? Again, licensing fee. And can you use a quotation or an image to market your goods or services? No, unless you have permission. Licensing fees. Readings. This one killed me. This one killed me because to my knowledge this is new. Readings. Can I perform readings of Tolkien's works? Readings of Tolkien's works in any setting which is open to the public will require permission, whether the event is commercial or otherwise. Requests for permission should be sent directly to HarperCollins publishers. And here's the kicker, quote, readings may not be recorded or broadcast, which means that they may not be streamed or uploaded for distribution via the internet. The Tolkien estate takes action in respect of unauthorized audiobooks and readings of Tolkien's works posted on websites and social media. AKA Silmarillion Saturday should not be happening. And Dawn's Silmarillion Sunday, which I know he's reposted at this point. None of that is legal. None of it. I'm not even supposed to read his poetry for people, which to me is sort of like, we don't care about disabled folk. But I understand what they're doing. I understand what they are doing. From a publisher's perspective, I completely understand what they're doing here. They're saying, you can only do the authorized versions. You can only enjoy the authorized version, right? They're saying, buy the one that Andy Serkis did, because we authorized that. Buy the one, didn't Stephen Fry do a reading of an audiobook reading? I believe he did. Buy that version. But it's very much just a, buy what we have officially sanctioned as being okay. Buy the stuff that we have sanctioned. And don't do anything more than that. But are you getting something different when we read things publicly? Yes. because you're getting my perspective. You're getting my knowledge base, Dawn's knowledge base. Because we can bring more insight and connect the dots for you. Verbally and visually, in some cases. We can do that in a way that your typical... Sorry guys, I'm trying to shift, but I really don't want to rip the heck out of my desk chair with my zippers. Let me hold on. There we go. I shift around a lot when I'm streaming. Makes things difficult. But we're bringing our own perspective. We're bringing our own commentary. And that's when you get into the murky area of, is that fair use? The reading of the material itself is not. That is copyrighted. And they want you to just do the official audiobook. And I would not be able to... It's a tough one. Because if I had the official audiobook and I played a section and then we discussed it, am I adding significant content to morph it into something new? And that's where the argument for fair use comes into play. Is it fair use? Am I adding something significant that changes it so that it's not just me reading the work? To me, I feel that I am, and I feel that Dawn did. We'll read a section, but then we'll give our thoughts, we'll connect it to different parts of the legendarium that aren't currently being read. And that's what we do, is we give it greater context, we give our commentary, what we think, or you know, fan headcanon theories. We add something to it. It's not just a pure reading of the book. If I were to sit down, put up my soundproofing stuff, and record just a straight up written word audiobook version of my own, that would be copyright. And I understand that. That's why I'm not doing that. I thought about doing it for a short period of time, but I wouldn't, because that is copyright, and I get that. But when I'm interjecting, like a couple paragraphs, every couple paragraphs I'm interjecting a note, or I'm changing the audio, or, you know, like, am I changing it enough that it is a different thing creatively? And I think with all the stuff that I add in, I am. I feel that I am. Now, would that be up for debate? Yeah, it would be. I don't want to get in legal trouble, but my argument for that would be fair use. We're in a strange in-between there. You honestly feel like copyright should die with the creator, but you understand that it doesn't. I understand it not dying with the creator, that there is a period of time with which it can still be owned by the surviving members of the family or an estate that has been set up to handle it. In this case, the Tolkien estate. Which, for a long time, Christopher Tolkien was the head of. But he passed, and now Priscilla has passed too. I don't know who remains at this point. I would have to look. I'm not that familiar with... I'm more familiar with Tolkien's world than I am with his actual family. Does that make sense? But yeah, the readings thing killed me when I read it. I was like, I can't do my live streams? 'Cause that would stink. That would really stink. I figured there were still some grandkids, yeah. Gosh, I keep seeing that honor the vow of water, hydrate notification. I don't have any water near me. I have sour candy. That's all I've got. But yeah, it kills me. It kills me because I feel like I add significant content to it. It's much like when you watch review videos, right? Almost everyone's seen at least one review video on YouTube. Am I right? I love watching people review and react to things. So if you like watching K-pop music videos, if you've ever watched people react to K-pop music videos, heck, a lot of people are introduced to K-pop by watching a reaction to K-pop. And then we're like, wow, that video was actually really cool, let's check that out. Or wow, I loved that music. What the heck were they listening to? This is how we get more exposure to the fandoms, right? But the reaction itself is original content. What they are reacting to is copyrighted. But the reaction itself is the bulk of the content. And so that's where I get into a murky gray area. Because part of my content is the actual reading itself. And the other part is my commentary. If it were pure commentary, if this was a book club kind of everybody read it on their own time, if we all promised that, over this next week we will read the next chapter of the Silm, read chapter 21 by the time we meet together again, all we will do is commentary. That would be fine. But the actual oral recitation of it is not allowed by default. Tolkien talk underground bunker when? Why have they suddenly become so guarded with the content? It's not necessarily sudden. This is the most I've seen them say about it. This is the most explicit I've ever seen them be. But it was always an undercurrent of just don't do it. It didn't stop people. And they haven't gone after a lot of people. But it's always been this way. I think people just don't tend to think about it because we've gotten so used to having active fandom. We've gotten really, really used to having active fan fiction communities, active cosplay communities. Heck, Don is doing his own D&D style campaign of what if they took the Eagles to Mordor. Another shout out to Don's Patreon. Join his Patreon if you want to see that, because it's awesome. But we're used to having an active fandom. That's what we have now in the modern age. And so trying to take it back to where it's just, you can only talk about this stuff on forums, but you can't actually recite things and make it more accessible to people. Because ultimately we want the money by the actual authorized stuff. It's fair. It's capitalistic as fuck, though. They don't want people offering stuff that they actually sell for free. And I get that. I do understand it. And I don't even disagree with it. But it really puts a damper on my fun. The fun factor goes really low when you take all of the fun fandom stuff out. There isn't actual authorized stuff of all the things I want. That's a kicker. That's the point. If there was an authorized version of this stuff, there wouldn't be a fandom demand for it. Right? We wouldn't be making up our own shit. If Tolkien had done it for us, or the estate had done it for us. Now, I don't expect the estate to write erotica, so that's never gonna happen. That's a fandom thing. And technically, it's violation of copyright. I get that. It's not gonna stop fans from doing it, though. The Tolkien estate is never going to authorize cross-stitch patterns. Probably not. Diamond painting, same thing. They're never going to authorize that. Now, maybe a particular artist would allow it. If we went to Jenny Dolphin, who's the watercolor artist that I love so much, if we went to Jenny and we were like, hey, I really want to make a cross-stitch pattern out of this painting you made, would that be okay? If we got her permission, technically the artwork is hers. It's fan art, but the artwork is hers. If we got her permission to use her design and make a cross-stitch pattern out of it, we could do that. But we would have to do that as fans, because no big company is going to do that. It's very niche. We could do it ourselves. And again, that would be a personal use rather than making it a public thing. If we were selling it to other people, that's when it would become a public commercialized thing. And you would need to have explicit written copyright permission. You'd have to license things. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so cool. Simbasil, that's so cool. For people on TikTok. They said, I was barely even a Tolkien fan and stumbled across you and Don Marshall. Recently bought every book I could get my hands on, over $200. To me, they're destroying an entire stream of free advertising. If not for you and the Tolkien estate, if not for you, I take that as the plural you, y'all, for the content that we create, the Tolkien estate would not now have your money. And that's where you walk the line between, I mean, like, they can say that all of this stuff is copyright. The line is, where do they enforce it? Where is their line in the sand? What is allowed and not allowed? Like, not just legally, because legally they're spelling it out really clearly here. They're making it very clear what is legally okay and not okay. But in practice, what are they actually going to go after people for? That's what makes the fandom nervous. Because they know that fandom is what keeps the Tolkien estate relevant. And without fandom, ain't gonna happen. So they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. If it is purely a capitalistic, they only want money, they are not going to shoot themselves in the foot like that. They're not going to shut me and Dawn down, knowing how much reach we have garnered through TikTok and how much we have pushed people to buy and read the books. Because we want people to read the books, because the books are great. But they aren't written for a modern audience. They don't have the same emotional, visceral writing style that is really common now in fantasy. Like, if you contrast, and this is a huge contrast, this is far extremes, but if you were to contrast Tolkien's The Silmarillion, the written book, with the anime Vox Machina, the Critical Role anime that they just put out. Tone, completely different. Medium, also completely different. But the tone of those two things, completely different. So, do Tolkien's works still stand up? Yes. But I have lost count of the number of times people have been like, I tried to read the Silmarillion and I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not from lack of trying. It's not from lack of desire. It's, I can't read this. Like, it's too difficult. It's too dry. It's too slow. Pacing-wise, it's so slow. And yet at times they cram so much in a tiny space that it overwhelms my brain, and it's all these names are in a different language I don't understand, and it's overwhelming. That's how a lot of people feel about reading the Bible. Yeah. A lot of historical-based texts are written in a very dry, disconnected, like dissociated style. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but it does make for a more difficult read for a modern audience, because we're trained with much more instant gratification. We're trained to like something completely different at this point. Tolkien's writing style hasn't aged well. I'll put it that way. It doesn't mean that his writing style is bad, it just means that it's not aged well. Modern society doesn't tend to steer toward that kind of writing style. Which is why fandom is so important. Because, honestly, how many of you would read the Silmarillion instead of listening to me or Dawn speak it to you? It opens it up for a lot of people. Where you don't have to worry about, oh my god, I can't deal with all the names on the page because it's Elvish and I can't. When someone else is taking the responsibility of getting that pronunciation right, you don't have to worry about it. It's so much easier. And it's so much more accessible for people. Dawn also explains things that I just can't get through my head. Exactly, that's what we're here for. And that's the service that we like providing to the fandom, because this is stuff that we love and that we know and that we're passionate about. If we can make things make more sense to you so that you come to a greater appreciation of Tolkien's works, that's what we want. And so none of this is done with ill intent, right? But are we technically violating copyright law? Yes, we are. Is the Tolkien estate going to come after us? Is the question. Because none of us have the time or energy or money to battle the Tolkien estate. We don't have that time and money. Like, I love y'all, but you don't pay me enough. You don't pay me enough to take on the Tolkien estate. Because that would take a lot of money and a lot of time. Tolkien was a boss at escaping reality and making a new one. Absolutely he was. That Tolkien made it his life work to do exactly that. And so my job is to bring you to that world. And to show you around. The words are his. The commentary is mine. The delivery of the words is mine. But have I been given permission? Have I been licensed from the Tolkien estate? No. No, I have not. And therefore, I am technically violating copyright law. Yeah, his work at times reads like a textbook. You're not lying. You're not wrong. That's absolutely correct. Hey, I would love to, I would love to be paid by the Tolkien estate. Problem is, if you alert them to my presence, they will probably just ask me to take all my shit down. They will take one look at my website and be like, no. No, 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 no. They would pick out every little thing on my website that they don't like, and a lot of it is going to be stuff that's in Tengwar, if I'm honest. And they will demand that I take it all down. So, while I would love to get permission from the Tolkien estate, it's very much a, do I ask permission or do I ask forgiveness? And at this point, I'm asking forgiveness. And it's very, forgive me. It's a, I'm not actually sorry, but please don't come after me kind of apology. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for anything I've done. I'm engaging the fandom. I feel like I'm doing a good thing. They are free to disagree. And they probably would. Right. No, I totally agree with that, Eliza. So, I feel like I'm doing an okay thing, but technically I understand that I am violating copyright law. That's how it works. That's how fandom works a lot. That's how a lot of fandom works, if we're being honest. But the readings one, that made me very sad. Trademarks, we know the Tolkien name, the monogram, the signature, all that stuff is registered trademark. In addition, many character names, places, events, and other elements from The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, including the titles of those works, are trademarked by the Saul Zaentz Company. So, we're not even supposed to, like, I shouldn't be able to put Middle-earth oils on my essential oils. If I put Mid-earth, that would be different, because it's not trademarked. But I shouldn't be able to put LOTR on stuff either. That's the reason I did LOTR instead of writing Lord of the Rings essential oils. So, technically all of this stuff that I've branded on my products. Misspell Earth. Do Middle-earth, but in a different language. Yeah, Mid-earth. Middel. Middel. Middle-earth. See, and if they took me to court over that, it would be obvious that I was just trying to avoid copyright there. Like, I'd probably still get in trouble. It's a splitting hairs thing. It's very clear. Middle Earth. Earth with an F. That's the thing is, I'm sure people have tried it. I'm sure people have done that. North Central Earth. Oh, no. Mid-level Earth. Not middle, but mid-level. Mid-level Earth. Sounds legit. Translation rights. That's talking about translating his works into other languages, so that's not really something we have to worry about. TV series. Can I get information about the Amazon TV series? And honestly, that's probably why they updated their website. It's just to, make sure that they had this, but in the process, they updated everything. Any questions about the forthcoming Amazon TV series should be addressed to Amazon at that email address. And then unpublished papers. So accredited scholars may consult manuscripts contained in the Tolkien archives, and that's the first question back at the very top was, how do I access the archives? So that information is given. But when it comes to marketing my essential oils, I should not be using anything that is technically connected to Tolkien at all. So all of the place names that I've used, those would all have to change. Because I have, a set of 9 essential oil blends that follow the progression of Frodo and the Fellowship through Middle-earth, through the storyline. And it starts in Hobbiton, which is definitely a place that's trademarked. Hobbiton is trademarked. I know that for sure. So I'd have to change that. Rivendell, Moria, Lothlorien. Let's see. We have Isengard, Edoras, Minas Tirith, Mount Doom, and the Grey Havens. So those are the 9 that I have blends for. All of those would need to change. All of them. I might be able to get away with just saying the Havens. But everything else would have to change. So, yeah, technically a lot of the stuff that's on my website would be in violation of copyright law. And some of it, honestly, if they come to me and they're like, hey, take it down. Take it down. I will do so. I will do so. What they can't do, in my opinion, is stop me from doing translations, because Neo-Sindarin is sanctioned. Neo-Sindarin they've given permission to people to learn Neo-Sindarin. I am sharing Neo-Sindarin with people individually on a private basis. It's private. For the most part. On TikTok, it's not. If they wanted me to take down my TikTok, that would suck, but I if I had to, I would. But they would have to be very clear about what I could and could not talk about. And I don't know that they're willing to, really outline what they figure is okay and what isn't. Because it'll be such a broad restriction on fandom that I think it would bite them in the ass. I don't want that to happen. I don't want harm to come to the Tolkien estate. So we're trying to find this middle ground here of actually putting copyright law into practice. Like, how much are they actually going to enforce these things? Some stuff, it's very obvious it should be enforced, but stuff where it's like me and Dawn having fun, are we really doing harm to fandom, or are we actually engaging fandom in a way that helps you as the Tolkien estate? So, not sure. Not sure. With the new show coming out, do I think that they'll be targeting Redbubble? Probably. Probably. What they're going to be looking for is they will not want people to... And this is the thing. When it comes to the Amazon TV show, we aren't dealing with the Tolkien estate anymore. We're dealing with Amazon. We're dealing with Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. We're dealing with him and his cronies. And in some ways that's better, and in some ways that's definitely not better. But we're dealing with their copyright, because they're the ones who hold the copyright for the TV show. So Dawn and I will definitely be making some kind of merch, right? It's inevitable. We'll latch onto something. But the trick will be latching onto things that we as a fandom create, rather than it being pulled directly from the show. So that will be the balance that we try to strike. You know, this is... And just because I'm currently watching Game of Thrones, it's the thing that's coming to my head. So, visually, Game of Thrones, every house has their own sigil, right? Every house has a sigil. Putting the exact design of that sigil onto a t-shirt is a very clear violation of copyright. Because there will be licensed merch that does that. And even if there isn't, it's something directly design completely lifted from the TV show. If you yourself did not design the thing, you can't sell it. So, you know, we're not going to be trying to do that. That's not our style. But if something is said in an episode in a way that we find funny, and we take that joke an extra step, and it becomes something in fandom. This is purely hypothetical. But we might put that phrase, or a visual representation of that phrase, onto a shirt. Fandom would understand what it is, but to an outside observer, they wouldn't know what the heck we're talking about. Right? Fan art is always safe as long as it's not sold. Not always. Not always. It depends. It really depends. But again, the difference is legal versus actually enforced, right? Because we can say this stuff is legal or illegal and make it relatively cut and dry. But with fan art, a lot of fan art is vague enough that if you didn't already know the context, you wouldn't be able to identify it specifically as a Tolkien fan art. I hope that makes sense. There are certain things visually that are very iconic, like hobbit holes, that doing something specifically around that, it would be instantly identifiable as being based on Tolkien, right? So that would be harder to defend through fair use than... I'm just thinking there's a painting of Fingolfin. This is another Jenny Dolphin painting. But she did a watercolor of Fingolfin battling Sauron. And you see Fingolfin sort of like crouched and he's, you know, injured and he's fighting. But you see him through like the armhole of Sauron with, you know, holding his mace. Not Sauron, Morgoth. Morgoth with his, you know, with his warhammer. So the perspective is really interesting. There's nothing specifically in that piece that identifies it as Tolkien. It just looks like a cool battle image. There are stars on his armor, which is described as in Tolkien, but plenty of other fantasy things have stars on armor. Like, it's not specific enough to be labeled Tolkien. And having a back view of Melkor's armor, also not specifically identifiable as Tolkien. And therefore, that would be easier to defend under fair use. I hope that makes sense. Copyright and derivative works. Yeah, kind of. This is just a huge thing. And I'm not an expert. I am not a lawyer. This is just from my own personal experience and my thoughts as far as repercussions, ramifications for fandom. Because it's a tough place to be. I'm going to switch my view over back to just chatting. Yeah. You are welcome. And as long as you cannot monetize it on the platform that you share the art from, it's fine. It's not that it's not a copyright violation, because it still is. Just the sheer creation of the work is a copyright violation. And could someone pursue you for it? Yes. Whether you are making money off of it or not. Because you have taken something that was for personal amusement and you have made it public. But it's more of a question then of enforcement. Are they actually going to come after you? Especially if you're not making a profit off of it, typically the answer is no. That's like going to a kid with crayons and telling them, you can't draw that. Like, why would you do that? All you're gonna do is, reduce the kid to tears, right? Like, and I know we're infantilizing it a bit, but you get the concept, you get the metaphor, right? I don't think they want to make kids cry, is what I'm saying. So actual enforcement versus legal copyright violation is a different thing. It's a different thing. What are they actually going to act on? There's stuff that I think is more high priority than others, and I just don't think they're going to go after individual artists unless they are very closely mimicking Tolkien's actual drawings or something that was sanctioned by Tolkien, like Alan Lee's drawings. If you're trying to basically copy those in your own style, that's where it gets a little murky and where they might come after you. If you were then selling things and all that jazz. But if you're trying to make a direct copy, we know that that's not a good thing. But you get into, this is my interpretation of this one scene from the Silmarillion. If you remove it from the context of the Silm and you were just to look at it as a person looking at a picture or drawing or painting or what have you, digital art even, if you were to look at that, would you be able to identify it as Tolkien like that? If not, and it wasn't based on anyone else's official artwork that they did from, the illustrated Ted Nasmith version of the Silm, if you didn't base it off of anything like that, then you'd probably be okay. I don't think they would come after you for that. But it's, are we closely mimicking? Are we trying to take something that wasn't ours and pass it off as if it is ours? It's the intent behind it. Most fan artists are not doing things with the intention of being an a-hole, right? We're not jerks by nature. Most of us. I'm sure they're bad apples. And same thing with people like me and Don. We're making content because we love the world. We're not making content to bash the Tolkien estate. This live stream is not an attempt to bash the Tolkien estate. It's me sharing the information that they made public and giving my thoughts on it. I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they're wrong to put all this stuff out about copyright. I think this is perfectly within their legal rights. It's the ramifications of how far will they enforce it. If they go hardcore Anne Rice and they start enforcing we don't want any fan fiction to be out there publicly, aka you'll have to keep it, you'll end up creating a black market. You'll create a black market. It'll be on the dark web. Fanfic, Tolkien fanfic is on the dark web now. People are going to get what they want, right? We'll find a way. But it'll make it more difficult for fans to enjoy the fandom. And I don't think they're going to do that to themselves. I don't think they're going to do that. If they did, there would be a lot of angry people, and I would be one of them. I got my start as a fiction author by creating fanfiction in Tolkien's world. Tolkien's sandbox is my favorite sandbox to play in. I'm currently rereading stuff that I wrote with my partner, and we did an amazing sort of behind the scenes, what really happened when Morgoth seduced Mairon, who ended up being Sauron, to his side. Why did that happen? What were the motivations? What were they feeling? What were they thinking? How much did they know was going to happen? And why did they choose to rebel versus not rebel? We dove deep into that, and it's so good. It's so good. Like, if it weren't in RP format, I would put it out there for people to enjoy. But it's in back and forth, head hopping, instant messenger roleplay format. It's like old school live journal format. Does anyone remember live journal? role-playing. Basically forum-style role-playing. Where you just go back and forth and you put your character name with a colon and then you put present tense. Present tense, what they do and think and feel, and then their dialogue. We do that. Or did. It's past tense. She's dead. But we did that. And we did that a lot. Shit, I just realized tomorrow's my partner's birthday. Fuck. Why did I have to realize that while I'm on stream? I'm gonna try not to think about it. We're gonna try not to think about that. My partner's birthday would have been tomorrow. And she would have been 42, so the answer to life, the universe, and everything. This is an aside, but I have to say the way you talk about my partner is warm and loving. Oh, thank you. I miss her every day. Every single freaking day. Like, not a day goes by. I have a tendency of losing which day of the week I'm on, and losing what day of the month I'm on, which is why I just looked at my computer and saw 310 and I'm like, oh god, her birthday's tomorrow. I love her though. I love her. I went to this is information you don't need to know. I went to a local LGBTQ kink community meeting last night, just for the heck of it. Never been before. And I got to talk about my partner there, and it was so cool. It was so cool. There's a level of acceptance that you get within the kink, specifically the kink community of queer folk. And it is so lovely. Because people don't make assumptions. You start out introductions by, like, giving the name you want people to use and the pronouns you'd prefer they use. And they make no assumptions. Not really. They don't assume that you're a top or a bottom or what you're into. They can't, because they know that looks are deceiving, that everyone has their own interests, right? So it's really cool. What a cool community. And what a great opportunity to chat to people who are like, that's really cool. Being able to be like, yeah, we weren't physical. I never open mouth kissed my partner, and I was with her for 12 years. Not everyone can say that. So to say we had a unique relationship is definitely accurate. But the way that we expressed ourselves sexually was through writing fiction. That's why we wrote characters that boinked like bunnies, because we physically didn't want that with each other. It didn't delegitimize our relationship at all. It just meant that our expression of our relationship was different. My family doesn't understand that. They do not understand. My family, unfortunately, didn't understand my relationship with Sandra until she died. Until they saw the grief that I was going through, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, we didn't think it was serious. Despite me having been with her for over a decade, my family did not consider us serious. Because, number one, it was a polyamorous relationship. She was already married. Therefore, an actual marriage, traditional concept of marriage, could not happen. We considered ourselves committed. You know, we wore rings. We weren't, just because we can't get a marriage certificate, like, we can't be legally married, doesn't mean that we weren't married. So, my family didn't really accept any of it until she died, and they saw how fucking destroyed I was. And that sucks. Especially, like, and this is not to get down on my sister, because I don't begrudge my sister anything. My sibling, sorry. Non-binary. She doesn't mind she, her pronouns, though. But she and her wife are amazing, and I love them, but they got to have an official wedding together, and they're coming up on their 5th year anniversary, and, like, everyone in the family is excited. My family doesn't even know what my anniversary date with Sandra was, because they didn't care. And that hurts. That still hurts. Because if I were to call my dad right now, if I were to like literally phone him right now on stream and ask him, hey, what's my anniversary date with Sandra? Would he remember it? No. I've told him a few times, but he wouldn't remember it. And neither would my mom. And neither would my sibling. They don't know. Because they didn't care. So it sucks. Do I still see my partner's spouse? No. So the poly that we were in was a V relationship. So me, Sandra, Roger. And he doesn't mind that I name him. Roger also has a girlfriend, so it's more like an N. and each of them had, like, the polycule expands, okay? It goes off. But I was at the far end. I was the end point of the polycule. Think of it like a molecule, where you have, like, the little diagrams with the lines in between the atoms, right? I'm a little atom off the end here. That's just me. So, me, Sandra, Roger. I was not with Roger. It was not a triangle. It was a V. Okay? There was nothing connecting us. So, C as in, do I still communicate with him? Yes, I do. As well as his girlfriend. What's the term? What's the term? It's not metamor. She started that way. I don't know what the term is in poly, because I'm not well versed in it. Being the end point means I wasn't with anybody else, so what? I'm poly by extension. Socially. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And I don't mind sharing any of this. If I were uncomfortable, you would know that I'm uncomfortable. I would make it very clear. But yes, I do communicate with Roger still. Mostly with Amanda, though. And she was the other point of the N. She was two points removed from me. But for a period of time, all four of us lived together in the same house. So very close with them. They are my friends. Is metamor right? Okay. But yeah, so Roger and Amanda are still together, and I'm in relatively frequent contact with Amanda. Roger, not so much, but it's just because he was never like the online communicator guy, not with me. So I see him when I FaceTime Amanda, and we're still very friendly, and we still care about each other, and in some ways we share trauma, because he lost his wife, I lost my partner, same woman, and so we both miss her terribly, and she was hugely important in both of our lives. So in certain ways there's a depth of friendship and understanding there that I won't have with anybody else in my life. So yes, we're still in contact, we're still social with each other, but I'm even more social with his girlfriend, his metamor, Amanda. So, yeah. Roger's the one who found her, and he didn't come to me first. He didn't wake me up first. He woke Amanda up first. Because that's his other significant other. I'm one removed on the chain, right? So he and Amanda had to deal with the trying to wake her up. I didn't know. They were already on the phone with 911 when Amanda shook me awake and told me, get dressed immediately, you have to go to the hospital. We think she's still here. I took one look and I was like, she's not here. She's not here anymore. But they have a different level of trauma from having to deal with that. You know, Roger waking up next to her. God, I can't even imagine. Cannot even imagine. I had my own room. So it's like there are certain things that we can only connect with each other about. You know, we all need therapy. They at least got therapy. I haven't, but I've been coping very well. I still have my sad days, but I don't I don't apologize for them. Sorry, looking back at what I missed in chat. Sorry guys. I'm trying to keep up with it. Love you guys! Oh, and Calagon. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, and Calagon. There are a lot of cool visuals from the Silmarillion that we just don't really cover an awful lot. It's pretty awesome. Same happened to you and your ex. You were together for 9 years, engaged for 5. Your family didn't remember your anniversary. It sucks. It sucks, man. It's like my relationship with Sandra was so non-traditional that, like, my family struggled to even comprehend it, much less acknowledge it. So it stinks. It stinks because, you know, I've lived with my dad now, post Sandra passing, and he experienced for the first time just the depth to which that cut went. And, you know, poor guy in some ways, having to acknowledge the fact that there's nothing he can do or say to make that better. For a parent, that hurts. But he got firsthand experience of grief bursts that he could not help with. And I know he loves me. He wanted to help, but he couldn't. And I would tell him when he could or couldn't. I'm just like, there's nothing you can do right now. There's nothing you can do. Like, I don't want contact. Leave me alone. There's nothing you can do. And I'm sure that hurt for him, feeling kind of helpless that there was just nothing he could do. But it's not his job. It's not his job. Him being supportive is his job, and he was very much that. Oh no, please. I don't mind these questions. It's off topic from the normal stream, so if you're only here for the copyright discussion, I think we've moved on from that now. But we can continue. I don't mind talking about my relationship. I love talking about Sandra. I love her so much. And if I can expand people's understanding of how strange and wonderful the world of queer kink is, then cool. Let's see. What was your question? How would I phrase my sexual or romantic orientation? Out of curiosity. Yeah, it's fine. I think currently the term that fits is an egosexual, which I know is one that not everyone's heard of. Even people at the meeting the other night were like, what does that mean? So even within the queer community, it's not very well known yet. An egosexual, A meaning not, and ego meaning ego, right? Me. Without ego, as in I don't want it to be about me. It's part of being demi-gray asexual. It's part of that spectrum. So it's part of the asexual spectrum. So as being an egosexual, it means I'm absolutely, like, I'm not sex averse like a lot of people can be in the ace community for various reasons. I love the thought of it. I love visualizing it. Self-pleasure, fine. But the moment I'm in a real world situation, not fiction. Fiction is my safe space, okay? Like, I could do anything I wanted. And because it wasn't actually physically happening to me, it was great. But the moment I'm in a real world situation with one partner, multiple partners, I've not been in a lot of these situations because I avoid them. The moment I'm in a real life situation, the moment the focus is on me, that's when I get uncomfortable. That's when the panic sinks in. If I were performing onto somebody else, I'd be fine. If I'm watching, I'm fine. But the moment it becomes about me, I'm not fine. So it's a very strange gray area of asexuality. That's where my sexual identity is. So I know that's not easy to understand, but that's sort of the gray space that I'm in. But as far as who I'm normally attracted to and such, typically it's... I tend to be more attracted to masculinity in general. Masculine presenting. And because I have very limited relationship experience, because I was with my partner for 12 years, and then before that I had 2 boyfriends. Ever. And the fell in love with my best friend in high school quasi-relationship, because we never actually dated. It was complicated, okay? Like, that stuff became complicated. Sorry, there's a hair sticking right there. I can see it. It's bothering me. But, so that's 4 relationships that I've ever had. I'm not well dated, okay? So, because of that, knowing what I like and don't like is a lot more difficult, especially being ace, because it's not necessarily sex that drives me. That's not what I need out of a relationship. And if I do need it, it's in a very non-traditional sense. It's typically not physical, which is very hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, which is totally fine. It is okay to not understand. On the ace spectrum somewhere. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel a lot of the time. Because I don't know exactly where I'm specifically at, and that's what I told the kinky people the other night. So yeah, but as far as physical attraction, I tend to skew more toward being attracted to masculine and androgyny. Androgyny is so wonderful. I love when I can't tell. It's freeing to not be able to tell. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. But typically, you know, and I appreciate women too, so I guess it's some flavor of pan? I don't know. All of the above. But again, being gray and also being non-binary, it's one of those things that, like, I am queer, but that's why I use the umbrella term, because it's too hard to figure out the exact label that would suit me. As a non-binary individual, I can't be either straight or gay, I'm just queer. Because if I don't identify as one gender or the other, how can I be with people of the same or opposite, right? It makes terms more difficult when you're NB, but here we are. Sorry, Tice, looking at your comment. Is the Elven language considered part of the Tolkien estate? Yes. If so, what does it mean for people who use it for merchandise? We did cover this, but I can absolutely rehash it. So, the Tengwar alphabet is a creation of Tolkien, and it is under copyright. So using the Tengwar alphabet to spell anything is copyright violation by default, because I didn't create that language, it's his. Pardon me. And the Elvish language, it gets a little murky. The reason it gets a little murky with the language itself is because the language that Tolkien created is not entirely known. It's not fully formed. It was constantly in flux because it evolved over time. So this is why we designate it as Neo-Sindarin or Neo-Quenya. The reason we do that is because we are taking it and separating it a little bit from attested sources only. So when I read something from the book, you know, or quote something from the movie, if it was something that Tolkien himself wrote, like Enas Nogothrim Lastobeth Lamen is something that Gandalf says to try and open the doors of Moria. That's an attested, that is Sindarin. That is Sindarin. Tolkien wrote it. Nothing has been done to it. That is Sindarin. That is attested. That is his language. Purely his. Neo-Sindarin, we have tried to standardize rules as we see them, or that he has described in notes, in letters, etc. We have taken all of these little bits and pieces. By we, I mean the linguistic community that loves Tolkien's languages. We've taken all these bits and pieces and we have coalesced them into our best guess of what Tolkien intended. But it is just that. It is our guess. So it is based on his language, but it's not completely his language anymore. Which is why we get into this weird gray area. And it's why, Fiona Jalling's the linguist who made A Fan's Guide to Neo-Sindarin. It's why she got permission from the Tolkien estate to publish her book. Because she took all of these things from a linguist perspective and said, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, here's what I think we should do, and how do we then use that to make sentences and names and stuff. So she did all of that work and put together a book. The Tolkien estate was fine with that because they deemed it educational, and they understand that there's a certain separation between Sindarin as Tolkien wrote it, which is purely his, and Neo-Sindarin, which has been reconstructed and standardized in a way that maybe Tolkien would not have intended, but he's gone, and so we can't ask him. So it's fan-made a little bit. And then you have online websites and forums where people are able to create words that are as close to attested as we can get, but it's still a fan creation. And that is, again, Neo-Sindarin. So that's the gray area when it comes to the languages. There's so much that you can learn about the languages, and I am not a linguist. I love his languages, but I am not a linguist, so I can't even fully appreciate the depth of knowledge that someone like Fiona has. It's amazing. Knowing all the different roots for different words and how those evolved over time with Tolkien, it's fascinating. And I know if Gilrine is still in chat, Gilrine has a background in that, which is fucking awesome. But that's so not my life. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Amaranth of Dell. Thank you. Yeah, it sucks to have lost her, but she's still alive in literally every piece of content that I make. Every piece of content that I make that's focused on Tolkien is a little bit of Sandra that I'm sharing with you guys. So, channeling my partner. She was great. And Tolkien was the thing that brought us together, and it's the last thing that we did before she died. Literally. We were RPing, actually, it was our first couple that we ever made in Tolkien's sandbox, which was Thranduil, whom most people are familiar with. Thrandy. Thrandaddy. But one of her favorite characters was Thranduil. One of my favorite characters was Gwyndor, whom we will read more about on Saturday when I still continue doing Silmarillion Saturday, even though I'm not supposed to because it's a copyright violation. Don't report me. You didn't hear any of that from me. But we'll hear about Gwyndor then. But Gwyndor's one of my favorite characters. He's a minor character. He doesn't really appear that much, but poor Gwyndor has all the bad things happen to him, and I, as a writer, just my little heart breaks for this sweet little cinnamon roll. And I want him to be happy, and so a lot of the fanfiction that I wrote with my partner took place in Valinor after all of the drama of ages 1, 2, and 3. So all the elves have left Middle-earth if they intend to leave. So everyone's in Valinor, and you have all the elves that have died but now have been reborn / given new forms. So everyone's back in Valinor. Now everyone is together. And that allows us to, because elves don't truly die in the sense that men die, human mortals die. Because of that, we can have them all reborn and in the same space at the same time. It's just sort of in this vague future Valinor. So we did that an awful lot. And so we paired up Thranduil and Gwyndor. And the two of them, it just clicked. It clicked. It was our longest running couple. We tried putting Thranduil with other people and putting Gwyndor with other people. And some of those were really fun to write, but just they didn't have the same connection that Thranduil and Gwyndor had. So that was our favorite pairing. We're probably the only people to ever put them together. But it was our favorite pairing. It was the first pairing we ever wrote together, and it was what we were writing the night that she died. So, yeah. That's how that goes. It was really sweet, too. It took me a few days. I think it took me like 4 or 5 days to get to the point where I could open up her laptop after she passed. Luckily it wasn't, fingerprint protected or something crazy, but I knew the password into her laptop. So I went in and I realized that she had already written out her next RP tag to me. She hadn't sent it, but she had written it. And so that was the last thing she ever wrote. And I sent it because, like, how could I not? I couldn't just delete it. So I sent that final message and wrote a little, I love you, I'll miss you kind of thing. Sent from Sandra's computer posthumously. And apparently, the other part of our V, Roger stumbled across that when he was cleaning out the laptops. He was like, wait, there's an RP log from like 5 days after she died. What the hell? Like, moment of panic, like, what happened? Ghosts? But he saw that I had sent the message posthumously, and it made him really, really sad. And I'm sorry, Roger. Sorry. Namarie, thank you for being here. You too. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome day. I'm so glad you like your hoodie. That was honestly one of the most fun things that I've translated. I've translated some fun things. I really have. And all things just keep getting better. I'm having a lot of fun with my current projects. I'm working on a bridal party. I'm working on the Cami Cat song. I have a few messages that I need to actually answer from my website, so I'll probably do that later today. But I'm also probably going to, like, make cookies or something, because I'm gonna want to, like, stress eat like hell tomorrow, because tomorrow's my partner's birthday. I'm gonna be emotional. But yeah. So. Hopefully that answered questions. I got really off track there. Now I'm just yawning because I'm tired. But I'm glad we could at least cover what was on the FAQ, because a lot of people have been asking me, my thoughts. My thought is there's a difference between copyright law, legal stuff, and actual enforcement of said legal stuff. Every writer has these same rights to restrict the use of their work by other people. Anne Rice took it to a far extreme where she banned fan fiction and went after fanfic writers whenever they would make stuff including her characters or her world. I don't think the Tolkien estate is going to take it that far. I really, really don't. They could. They have every right legally to do so, but that's a lot of effort. I'm too lazy for that. But that's a lot of effort to go through, and I think ultimately it would hurt the fandom to a point that the fandom would die. I think the fandom would die if they did that, so I don't think they will. So discussing what is actually within their rights, which all the stuff that's listed on their website is totally within their rights to restrict, so good for them. I'm fine with that. Will I follow that? Probably not. I really want to, and it probably means that instead of keeping my live streams of past parts of the Silm up, I will probably unlist them and just keep them an informal thing. So yeah. I think that's how I'm gonna deal with it when it comes to my live streams. Because I feel like I am adding a significant... I feel like I am adding a sufficient, I'll put it that way, a sufficient amount of additional content to put it under the category of fair use. That's my personal take on it. And I am not just recording an audiobook and putting it out there for people to enjoy for free. If I did record an audiobook, I would probably not put it out there for free. But with all the discussion and everything, and me breaking down, you know, what the various names mean in their Elvish, you know, roots and all of that jazz, I feel like that adds significant content and sufficient content to be considered fair use. So that's my stance on my live streams, and so that's what I'm going to go for. It just means that I will not do a pure reading, where I read and don't do anything but the actual reading. What I would like to do, because it's so tied up in original content that it would absolutely be fair use, is I would like to do ASMR readings of... There we go. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. I got a notification that my OBS disconnected, so it took me a second to get it back up, but this will be relatively short to finish things off. So yeah, there we go. Okay. So all I was saying was I consider an ASMR reading with all the other tingles and all the other things that I'm doing visually to be fair use, because it will be a transformative work. Just because it has quotes from him does not mean it's all about Tolkien. So we'll see. You know, and that could be argued. It could be argued for or against, but I think that it's original enough that it counts as fair use. But that pretty much draws it to an end, unless anybody has any final questions. Any other questions? Like, please toss them at me. Toss me your questions, and I will happily answer them before we head out. I'm so thirsty that I'm actually, like, considering putting sour candy in my mouth. What is wrong with me? For the record, I hate sour candy. I just have a lot of it because it's high-level entertainment value for you. Because people love watching me eat sour candy because it hurts. Makes my salivary glands fire up just hearing it. Just thinking about it. But if y'all have any questions, please let me know. Let me know. Happy to answer anything. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I came online to do, was really you know, take a look at the FAQ, go through it, give my thoughts. We know that what we're doing is technically violation of copyright. It's sort of that situation of asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. And if we get in trouble, we will absolutely take care of it. You know, Don and I don't want to, you know, anger the Tolkien estate. We're trying to uplift the community, not do anything wrong. So if we get called out on something and they ask us to take something down, we'll probably do that. You know, I can't think of a specific scenario that we would fight back on. It's not happened yet. But if that ever comes up, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. I know. I gotta get water in me, it's true. We'll call the stream to an end. But I wanted to at least go live, address that stuff. Hopefully answered some questions. I may still make a TikTok video about it, because people are like, oh my god, did you know? And I'm getting tagged in a lot of stuff for my thoughts. So I've given my thoughts live. I'll try to consolidate them into something coherent for TikTok, I guess. Not sure that that'll get done today. My energy is super low. I thought I was going to try another recording of the family Feanor, but I do not have the energy today, and I already know it. So, We'll do small things instead. Yeah, no worries. No worries. Always happy to engage with you guys. I love talking Tolkien, so any excuse, right? But let's see. What do I have on the docket today? I think I need to reply to emails, because I think I have a couple other people who are wanting me to do small translations, which are honestly my bread and butter. Thank you guys for bringing me your small translations. It means the world. It keeps me in business. And I love doing them. I really love doing them. Geeking out about Tolkien all the time with you guys is like the best. It's the best job ever. But yeah, so probably do that today. I may put some holes in my walls to hang up the art that I have for the Vire wall, which I talked about on my Patreon. So if y'all want like behind the scenes stuff of everything that I'm working on, Patreon's the way to go. My tiers are not very expensive, and I do physical perks as well. I know Don is digital only because he has a much larger number of people following him. I'm small, so as such, I can afford to do physical benefits for my Patreon peers as well. So if you want to support me, if you want to try my essential oils, if you want to buy Starscapes, support me on Patreon. You get those things. Those are part of the tiers. Love to see you there. If not, eventually I'll make videos for TikTok/YouTube. Yeah, please do. If you or anyone you know wants something translated for tattoos for personal use, right? We discussed that today. Anything for personal use. Contact me. I have on TikTok, I have a link in my bio to my link tree, and like pretty close to the top, there should be a link there. That is a contact form, and it's on my website. So if you guys are in chat on Twitch or YouTube, my website is elfboy.com. Let me put that in chat really quickly. Do. There you go. So that is my link to my website. There is a contact form there. It's on the About section. But you can contact me if you have any translation needs or you have any language questions, significant ones that you can't find answers to. Please do your due diligence before you contact me. But I'm happy to help. And yeah, I take commissions. I take donations. I take donations. Thank you for donating. But prices are reasonable. I really try to just make you guys pay for my time. It's how much time are you taking? You're welcome, Rowan. Yeah, be well, everybody. And yeah, I may or may not do something tomorrow. If I'm feeling up to it, maybe I'll do a calligraphy stream. Something super chill. Something super chill. Just to relax and not feel alone. That, or maybe I'll just binge more Game of Thrones. That might happen too. I'm not, like, enjoying it, but it's something to pass the time and distract me with, which is all it really needs to be right now. I'll say, the jury's out. I'm not convinced. I'm not ultimately very impressed thus far, but I'll give it time. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm really curious about, like, the point at which people said it started going downhill. I'm like, because I'm not considering it terribly uphill yet. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I keep an open mind. I have dismally low expectations, so I'll take it for what it is. But we'll see. I am relieved that the Amazon show will not be like Game of Thrones, because good lord, the amount of nudity. It's just excessive. I don't care about it, because again, I'm an asexual person. It doesn't necessarily do it for me to see that stuff in a TV show. So I'm just like, okay, they're out again. But yeah, I'm glad that they're not doing that for the Lord of the Rings TV show, for the Rings of Power, because there's no point to it. Nothing is sexualized in Tolkien's work, which is kind of nice coming from an ace perspective. But with that in mind, if there were worries at one point that an intimacy coordinator had been hired for the Rings of Power, and if that happened, I have no way of confirming whether that's true or not. But if that did happen, I want to reassure people that intimacy coordinators are not just for sex scenes. Like, an intimacy coordinator is not just for the smexy moments on screen, okay? They do more than that. It's making sure that anything even remotely intimate, like it's you know, it can be kissing coach style. It's helping the actors be comfortable with any intimacy that happens. Be comfortable visually with what their bodies, what's going to be shown, what is not going to be shown, and also choreography. For lack of, I know that sounds super clinical, but choreography. Where's the camera going to be? What angles look good? Do we need extra padding in this area or that area to make you more comfortable in whatever position you have to be in for the camera angle? These are things that are not inherently sexual, and not necessarily tied to nudity even. So stuff like that, it can be intimacy without being Game of Thrones style, which is like they show everything, pretty much. Everything except the actual act, because they are actors, they are not they are not porn stars. Maybe they are. I wouldn't know. But there are certain things that are done on camera and certain things that are not done on camera, and certain things that will be shown and will not be shown. That's true for Game of Thrones, which is far more or openly sexual, which is fine, whatever. And then you have something like The Rings of Power, which will probably be far less overt. But even if they did get an intimacy coordinator, they do more than just sex scenes, okay, guys? So, like, don't freak out. Don't freak out. It's only an issue once it becomes an issue. Even as an allosexual person, the amount of nudity in GOT is too much. I feel it's excessive. I feel it's there for shock value and to engage a very specific audience. There's a very specific dude bro cis het male audience that you're engaging with that. Like, because not every guy is going, woo, titties! But that's the people they're engaging with when they do that. When it's just excessive and it's there for no particular reason. There were artistic ways that you could have shot that so that it was unnecessary. They chose not to. Good for them. I mean, you know, it seems lazy to me, but that's just personal preference. That's personal preference. That's absolute opinion, not fact. But yeah, I feel it's a bit excessive. I'm not impressed by it. People are attractive. Like, I'm not complaining. But it's just, I feel it's useless. It doesn't progress the plot. There are certain things that, and I hate the R word being used as a character development tool for ladies. It happens way too often in fiction, and I know George R.R. Martin is particularly bad at that, but like that becoming the defining aspect of a person's identity. I'm like, that's really freaking sexist. Please stop. It's a time filler, yes, but it's... and I don't even mind creating conflict with the ins and outs of who's with whom at what time and all that jazz. I'd be fine with that. Create the drama. I'm cool with it. But you can create the drama without necessarily showing everything. So, again, it's time filler, like you said. If it's not necessary, then it's not necessary. But I don't mind it being there. when it doesn't progress the plot or show some sort of new aspect of a character, like Joffrey's incident with his birthday present from his uncle. I'll put it that way because that keeps it tame for the censors. That showed a new aspect of Joffrey as a character. Despicable, but it showed something new. And so that one felt reasonable. Terrifying, but reasonable. So that one I didn't mind because I feel like it did progress the character development, even if I don't like that character. Still character development. And I don't feel that it was necessarily there for pure shock value. Other stuff feels excessive, and the violence gets that way sometimes too. So it's a balance. It's a balance, and what audience are you truly trying to appeal to? Is the question that I tend to ask. And often that audience is not me. I'm self-aware enough to know. But yeah, so we'll see how my opinions evolve over time, but that may be what I end up doing all of tomorrow. If I'm feeling up to streaming and I feel like I want to, then I will. But otherwise, it might just be me distracting and wallowing, which is also fine. It'll happen if it happens. Right, exactly. Like, it was emotional, just not emotional in the way that we like watching. It was cringy, but like in the correct way. It was, yeah, it made me uncomfy, but in a way that is reasonable. There have been a couple moments like that. But, you know, I'm enjoying it for what it is. I'm not impressed, but it's been fun to watch, I guess. Neither here nor there. We'll see how that evolves. Once I get to like season 4 or 5, I think I'll have formed a better opinion. We're still too early to tell. But I hope everyone enjoyed the stream. Basic copyright discussion. And yeah, certainly if anybody has questions, you can always direct them to me. Feel free to leave comments, be it on TikTok or over on my YouTube videos and live streams and stuff. So happy to engage with you guys always. If you have any need for translations, please see my website, elfboy.com. And yeah, I think that's it for today. I do plan on still streaming on Saturday, and that's all I'll say about that. We gotta hit Turin Turambar, okay? I'm determined to finish this film. And if someone calls me out on that and I get in trouble, then that's gonna suck. But hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully this is a matter of, like, I'm small fish. Small fish, very large pond. So I'm hoping that we can still enjoy that together, and I'd still love to read some of his poetry, because I don't think that gets nearly enough attention, and I would love to expose more people to Tolkien's poetry. Because I think when poetry is spoken aloud, it takes on a completely different life. It's a different presence than just seeing it on the page with a certain meter and a certain rhyme scheme. I feel like you can get a lot more out of an actual performance of the poetry. So I think reading the Lay of Lathian and reading the Lay of the Children of Húrin will be a lot of fun. So whether I do that ASMR style or I just do it in a typical podcast-like setting, we'll have fun with that. I still plan on doing that, and just, you know, don't report me. That's what it comes down to. I haven't pissed anyone off yet. I haven't pissed anyone significantly off yet. We'll see. But I'll see you guys on Saturday, and maybe tomorrow if I'm feeling up to it. You guys take care. Love you guys. I'll see you next time. I promise there will be a next time.